Hello, Liz, otherwise known as the Poop Queen. Thank you for joining me today. I'm really excited to have you.
Hi, Kim. Thank you for having me on.
So I think it was the blue poo test post that I made where I got connected with you.
Yes.
Pretty sure that's how it happened. Yeah.
It's like, don't do the dye.
It's funny from that post because I don't even remember how I first. Oh no, it was another guest I had who had said there's this thing called the blue poo test. So I went and researched it, and then I said, oh well, I'm going to try this and make this, and it's a test. And no, I don't like putting blue dye in my body, but I was like, it's a one time, I'm going to do it. And but yeah, that was like most people were just eat corn, just eat beets, don't use the dye, and a lot of people were assuming that I was saying this is a healthy recipe for avoiding constipation, which is not at all what I was trying to say. But anyway, that's how we got connected. I would love to learn more about how you became the poop queen and what your background is. So I'll hand it over to you and you can tell us a little bit about yourself.
Of course. Thank you. So, my name is Liz Roman, otherwise known as the Poop Queen, as she mentioned. And this name came about because I was chronically constipated for 8 years prior to becoming a functional nutritionist. And I do own a practice, a virtual functional medicine practice with 7 practitioners on our staff, and we work with women all over the world. But prior to entering into this space, I was seeking help from conventional medicine, and I was really struggling with all types of issues outside of just constipation, skin issues, horrible PMS. I had, brain fog, weight loss resistance. I would lose weight and I would gain it back, and horrible energy too. And so eventually, I won't bore you with all of the details, but eventually I saw a functional medicine doctor who was able to help me understand what was going on with my body, and it was Hashimoto's. That was shortly after I graduated college. Back in my youth, around the age of 11, I was diagnosed with children's rheumatoid arthritis. And so I went through a whole thing there: steroids, prednisone, methotrexate, birth control, the whole 9 yards. And not once was I ever asked about my diet, my lifestyle, what I was doing to support some of these symptoms. And it was just, again, a pill for every ill, right? It was a pill for the symptoms and get you out of the office as fast as possible. So my eyes were really opened because that was my then second autoimmune disease that I was diagnosed with. And through my healing journey, it really sparked this passion in me to help other women, because I knew from talking with other friends, I wasn't alone in this. And I did meet a girl who had gone to this doctor and she saw an amazing transformation. And so since then, that was in 2014. Since then, I went back to school and I left my corporate career in HR, and I've now been practicing in functional medicine since about 2017 is when we launched Fit Mom. So that's how the Poop Queen name came about. I was joking about it on a podcast with my business partner. And then, to be honest with you, I don't know if anybody can resonate with this, but if you've ever had one of those dreams that awaken you in the middle of the night and you have this idea, it was December of 2022. And I thought, I've got to do the 12 days of constipation. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start my Poop Queen account because I was already on Instagram, but a different handle. And I did it. I looked up, thank God, 12 days of constipation, or excuse me, 12 days of Christmas starts on Christmas Day, not the beginning of December, like a lot of people think. So that gave me just enough time to film all these reels to launch the Poop Queen. And here we are.
And here we are. That's awesome. It's funny. That's how Vagina Coach came from a joke as well. You're saying you're joking with somebody, and then here you go. Now you've got this whole platform about Poop Queen. Mine was speaking to an audience, and I got up on stage and joked. It was a business conference, and everybody was some sort of a business coach. But I was talking about how optimizing pelvic health can make you a better entrepreneur, and it was a mompreneur conference. Anyway, I joked and said, okay, now you have a vagina coach for your business. And it was just like that moment, like, oh my God, that's what has to happen now. So here we are.
I love it. It's so catchy. I mean, your platform is amazing. I've met a lot of pelvic floor therapists. Obviously, in the world of constipation, we know they're interconnected, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yours is definitely very catchy, because if I'm scrolling through, I think for many other reasons too, right? There's a lot of things that come to my mind besides just constipation with vagina coach. So I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was just speaking, I interviewed another guest today for a different episode, and pelvic health professional, but constipation was coming up in that conversation. And I was sort of joking saying, it's almost like I need I won't steal your name, but a poop queen podcast, because it's a very common theme that we talk about here is constipation, because it's so prevalent and it affects the pelvic floor so much. Sometimes it's the pelvic floor that's contributing to the constipation. Sometimes it's the constipation that's influencing the pelvic floor, not in a great way. So it's definitely a topic we talk about a lot here. I want to, since you planted the seed about Hashimoto's, I know that's not where we were going to start, but I would love to start there. This is something that I deal with as well. I've never heard the term before until I was kind of down this path of what the heck do all these symptoms mean. What is Hashimoto's? And you've already said constipation was something that was contributing. It is an autoimmune condition. What are some of the other, I guess just go into the description of what Hashimoto's is.
Absolutely. So Hashimoto's is an autoimmune of the thyroid. So your immune system is mistakenly attacking the thyroid gland, thinking that it's, a problem, right? A foreign invader. Our immune system is there to help us adapt and to keep us alive, right? To fight viruses, bacteria, pathogens, all the things. And really, when we think about, when we're looking at the thyroid gland and constipation or motility, particularly, depending upon if you're on the slower side, which we would call hypothyroidism, most common associated with Hashimoto's, you are going to be on the slower side of motility. Everything slows down. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the gallbladder, because I think that a lot of people overlook this and just think it's like a gut microbiome issue, but really the gallbladder comes to play a lot here. On the flip side of this, we can have Graves' disease, which is hyperthyroidism. And then for some of those women, they might have the opposite, where they're going to the bathroom more frequently. They might feel, anxiety, racing heart, right? Maybe they are hot all the time compared to somebody else who, with a slow functioning thyroid, which is, as we call it, kind of the master of the metabolism, you're feeling cold hands, cold feet. You are, just struggling to keep up with things. So whether that's brain fog or just never feeling rested. And so when I look at any autoimmune condition in the body, I'm thinking about the immune system, and I'm thinking about what toxins are residing in the body, what invaders has the immune system not been able to combat effectively that are now triggering this immune system to stay overactive. And this is essentially where we start to see all types of different autoimmune conditions arise. So for me, I've been able to put it into remission. I am not on a thyroid medication, but I do take a thyroid supplement every day, a glandular. And I'm actually pregnant with my second boy right now. And my doctors are always asking me every appointment, you have a history of Hashimoto's, but you're not taking any medication. Who's managing this? And I said, if you look at my thyroid lab, you can see that my antibodies are negative, that my TSH, which is not a thyroid hormone, we could talk about that too, but my free T3 is perfect. My thyroid is functioning because I've done the underlying work to resolve my gut issues, poor detoxification, which is 100% constipation. If we think about our drainage funnel, it's the bottom of the funnel is your colon, right? And then everything else, your kidney, your liver, your gallbladder, all of these other organ systems, they get backed up. They become toxic. So if you're constipated, which most people don't understand the definition of this, so I'd like to define that. The way that I say on Instagram is I want you moving your bowels 1 to 3 times a day pain-free. You probably understand the pain-free part, right? We want to get in that nice, I call it pooping hygiene, but toilet position, knees above your hips so that you have that proper open valve and you're not straining to go, pushing, all of these things that people do, which really places a lot of pressure on the pelvic floor, as we know. If you're backing that system up, there's no way that any of your organ systems in the body are going to function well, right? We're going to see the liver struggle more because all of these toxins essentially go back in line, they get recirculated and have to be detoxified again. That makes our bile sluggish, right? Gallbladder is huge, yet unfortunately it's one of the organs that's most commonly taken from people. And when we really think about constipation, bile is our natural laxative. It's our internal detergent. It helps us remove cholesterol. It helps us detoxify things. It also is antimicrobial in the small intestine, break down fats, fatty soluble vitamins, all these amazing things. Yet if you have an issue with your gallbladder, they just say, let's take it out. And I think there are life-threatening situations, of course. If you've got a stone that's stuck, right, that can become septic, and you certainly, don't want to risk that. But there are many ways to naturally support getting rid of gallbladder stones or breaking them down and passing them without removing that organ, because it does play such a role, especially with constipation. Bile is a lubricant, as I say, to your colon. And if you remove that gallbladder, one of the big things we often see too is that women really struggle to convert their T4, which is inactive thyroid hormone, to T3, the active thyroid hormone. So we have to work extra hard. We can do it, right? We can live without a gallbladder and we can support our body. But it is a situation where I'm generally always recommending someone take then a supplemental ox bile support to make sure that you've got enough bile, keep things moving well, keep things, smooth, right?
Lubricated,
We should not be
yep.
lubricated, yeah, and smooth. So it's all interconnected. We certainly have, outside of the thyroid, we've got a gut skin axis, a gut brain axis, like we see all things. And, I know for many women who are struggling with thyroid issues, they do struggle mostly to lose weight. I did. I really fought hard to lose weight. And if I wasn't staying on track, I was gaining the weight back. And I did. I lost 40 pounds very unhealthily, not something I recommend doing. I was working out twice a day, eating like a bird, essentially as many 0-point things on Weight Watchers as I possibly could at that point in time. And then when I graduated college and came into the corporate world, stress, right? That was no longer my lifestyle. I wasn't able to work out twice a week, and I certainly wasn't eating well. And so I gained 50 pounds back. And then from there, it was really a struggle until I got to the root cause of all of the imbalances in my gut microbiome and removing them and, essentially restoring function. And then my thyroid cooperated to the point where I could come off medication.
So I kind of want to go down the path of the gut, obviously, but just before we do, I want to address two things. One, you said you take a glandular. Can you explain what that is and what it is that you take?
Yeah, so I personally, right now, I take GTA Forte. And so glandulars are natural things. I mean, if we think about even some of the, like NP thyroid, it's desiccated pig, essentially, thyroid gland. So you can take thymus, you can take all of these different kind of like, if you want to support the liver, I always say beef liver is a great, place to go. If you want to take spleen thymus to support your spleen, if you're having those issues, we can get a lot of that from, animals and the way they extract them. So that, and I would say selenium, iodine, zinc, magnesium, a lot of foods that really support the thyroid from a vitamin and mineral standpoint. Many women, one, don't diversify their diet. Two, might be afraid of fats and fear fats. I did. I grew up in the 90s and we were told fat makes you fat. What we know now is that low fat makes you fatter. So we need the fat because we need the fat to build our hormones, including our thyroid hormones, right? And so when we're doing something, like again, I did when I was doing Weight Watchers, everything was fat free. Everything was as 0 calories I could possibly get it, or I remember buying all of the 100-calorie snack packs because it was only 2 points, and I could have that as a snack. And it was sweet. It was the Chips Ahoy 100-calorie snack packs. It was processed and not good for me. But it was, what I knew at that point in time, I thought that it was good, right? I thought that this would be the answer to my problems. And if I just got the weight off, things would resolve. And lo and behold, the whole time, I didn't realize that I was doing more damage because I was also depriving my body of these essential fats that support not just female hormones, but again, also thyroid hormones. So there's a lot of different ones that I love that are out there, but GTA Forte is what I currently take. I do really like a product called Titropin PMG. And this is a protomorphogen. This is from Standard Process. And that actually is what I took to help block my antibodies. So instead of it would basically block the immune system's attack on the thyroid while I did the underlying work to resolve the infections that were driving inflammation. I will say that I really like a product called ThyroBoost Plus by New Ethics. So again, there's different ones out there. You've got to find what works for you. dosing also. So for me, I have found, and a lot of companies will share this if they are testing their product and they're third party, verified, they will share that, hey, in this batch where they sourced it from, it wasn't as strong or it is more potent this time. So for me, I kind of bounce back and forth between like 2 capsules a day versus 3 capsules a day. And I check that with my blood work. Obviously, as a functional practitioner, especially in pregnancy, I'm looking at this a little more closely. But I always tell women, if you are changing anything, right, in terms of medication dosing, or you're adding something to help wean a medication, we do help women get off thyroid medications, because a lot of times when they resolve their issues, their gut issues, and they support the immune system and address all of the imbalances in the body, the thyroid wasn't the problem all along. It was just that the hormones weren't signaling the way that we needed. So I always say every 6 to 8 weeks when you're making a change, and that also includes if you're taking something, let's say like, iron. I added iron in, I added vitamin D in, right? Because my vitamin D was low. Well, see how that is working for you. Are you absorbing that so that we don't then overdo it, right? I don't believe in taking things that we don't need, because I do believe that body has what it needs to heal. But, those are just, I would say, probably my top 3 products to support the thyroid.
Got it. Cool. I'm going to save the second question that I had because I want to go into the gut. So what is the gut? And like gut health has been quite popular for some time. So, and I guess what are some of the more common signs and symptoms that you may need to heal your gut?
Yeah. So I think we've seen leaky gut, dysbiosis, right? Intestinal permeability, all these different buzzwords pop up, and, people are great with marketing, right? I guarantee you, we'll get off this podcast and we'll probably get new ads popping up on our Instagram just towards us from talking about this. Let's take, for example, probiotics, right? They're everywhere. I get asked about Seed 2 to 3 times a week. And I think they're a great company. They have a great quality product, but I don't broadly recommend probiotics because probiotics are very strain specific. So it might work well for someone, but for another individual who's dealing with a lot of dysbiosis, you're actually feeding bacteria that should not be fed, and it makes things worse. So a lot of people, when they think about the gut, they think about digestive organs, right? Our stomach, our small intestine, our large intestine, or our colon, right? But it's way more than that. We know that the gut is often called the second brain. It definitely plays many roles in all other organ systems, because I always say this to people. There's 2 ways that you build your body up. You eat, and you have to assimilate nutrients to actually absorb those, right? You have to go through the digestive process of breaking things down and actually absorbing those nutrients to benefit from them. And you sleep. How many people eat in a rushed state? And listen, I am not throwing rocks because I don't live in a glass house. I ate lunch while I was working today because it's been a back-to-back day of podcast. And so that's not ideal. But we eat in the state that we're distracted and we are not, focusing like on our food. And that, isn't prioritizing digestive then. So we're not getting essentially as much as we could out of our food. And then how many people struggle with their sleep, right? They are tired and wired at night. They're tossing and turning. They're just not getting that good, restful sleep. And so I just wanted to throw that in there, but I do want to kind of talk about 5 ways that the gut really impacts, our overall health. And number 1, as I've kind of already mentioned a few times, is our immune system. So we know that 80% of the immune system resides in the gut microbiome. And essentially microbiome just means that it's home of trillions of microbes. We are literally walking, breathing bacteria essentially. And if we have, organisms that are being fed that shouldn't be, let's say fungus or, viruses or things like that, we become sick, right? We become ill, whether that is with, a cold or a flu, or it's a yeast infection, right? Things that are traveling then out of the stomach to the vaginal microbiome. All organ systems have their own microbiome. So it plays a big role here. So we have to think about the immune system. I would say mental health. So the gut-brain axis is very real. Many people have probably heard that 90% of your serotonin is created in your guts. But we also have, the wandering vagus nerve throughout the body, and that really communicates a lot of things and sends signals and neurotransmitters, right, to function properly. And so when we have, this is a chicken and an egg scenario, I will say, when we have a lot of dysbiosis or inflammation in the gut, we do generally see anxiety, depression, ADHD, type symptoms. And sometimes this happens in reverse for people. Sometimes they start feeling anxious and then they notice the digestive system is off, right? Whether that might be bloating or gas or stomach aches or whatever that might be. So it's hard to know. And even conventional medicine, GI doctors say this a lot. A lot of times they're prescribing anti-anxiety medication because they don't know, which one came first and where the root cause lies. But that's what we aim to help people with. Number 3 is weight management. Okay, so an imbalanced gut microbiome can lead to weight gain, or it can also lead to difficulty maintaining your weight. So you are losing weight, you're struggling to put weight on. Different bacteria influence our insulin signaling, which impacts our blood sugar. That all, of course, impacts weight loss and thyroid and all of the things. Hormonal balance, or imbalances, I should say. Hormones are produced by the foods that we consume. We have our mother hormone named pregnenolone, and it comes from cholesterol. And again, going back to the era I grew up in, and what many people still are told is avoid red meat, right? Don't eat eggs, and they fear monger all of these amazing, good, healthy fats that we need. Why don't we talk about seed oils? Why don't we talk about processed foods, artificial ingredients, all these preservatives? Because if we don't have the good healthy fats, we're not going to have good healthy hormones. So fats serve your adrenals, carbs serve your thyroid. It's a little saying that I kind of remind women because they're so afraid of one or the other or both. And then number 5 here that I want to touch on is the gut-skin axis. So here's where we think about, skin is really, it's your largest surface organ, but it's a good window into what's going on internally. It's an 80% inside job and what we say is 20%, external, what you're putting on your skin, being exposed to, hair care, skin care, those types of things. So in order for us to, maintain good healthy skin and not have eczema, acne, psoriasis, those types of things, we need to look to the gut microbiome and again, get rid of invaders that might be acting up because that shit will come out your skin. Really?
Yes, it will. So there's signs and symptoms based, like in those 5 things you just listed, there would be a host of signs and symptoms that you've listed here as well. Are there gut tests? There's poop tests, the GI map test. Is there value to those, or is it more reliant on the signs and symptoms?
Absolutely. So there's a couple of things here because I do love the GI map, but what I want people to understand is a couple of things. Number 1, it's only one stool sample. So it is very valuable. I love the intestinal health marker section on it that actually helps me understand more about the gallbladder. If there's fat in that stool, they're not breaking down their fats appropriately. The gallbladder is struggling or we have bile flow issues. Pancreatic function, elastase 1. That is something that has been invaluable for so many of my clients. So especially, this is honestly more for people who are dealing with more loose stools, seeing food in their stools, dealing with a lot of just like stomach cramping and uncomfortableness after they eat like by 2 or 3 hours. That can be that the body isn't giving you enough pancreatic enzymes to break down your food, digest and absorb. So it's one thing to ingest food, and it's another thing to actually digest food. So I love that on there. We can also see calprotectin, that's the gold standard for inflammation. In the GI tract, we can see something called beta-glucuronidase. This tells us a little bit about the estrobolome. So for females, we have bacteria that can reactivate estrogen that is set for excretion. And so you might not have estrogen dominance because your estrogen levels, serum or urine, are in range, but you have estrogen dominant symptoms, right? Because of the bacteria. So that's a really good one. Oh my gosh, secretory IgA tells us the health of the mucosal tissue. And then yes, there is a variety of pathogens that we do look at on there. But remember, it's one test. So like I always tell my people who are working with me, I most often catch a lot of nutrient deficiencies, certain infections, especially parasitic infections, through blood work. So I always start with blood work. I think it's the most reliable, repeatable scientific test that we have. But I do like the stool test analysis as well. Symptoms are always going to trump any test that you do, including blood work, because what we are about is helping you have a good quality of life, right? If you're going to do the functional work or any type of work on yourself, you're doing it because you want to have a life of vibrancy. You want to feel well, be able to do the things that you want to do, show up for the people that you want to show up for, and not be miserable and tired and just struggling and relying on caffeine all the time. And so, I think that those are amazing tests, and I use them in my practice very frequently, but we always will come back to the symptoms, and are we resolving the symptoms? If we're not, then there's something deeper that maybe wasn't identified on blood work or a stool analysis. And this is something where we have to look, beyond the gut and really think about, what's in the environment. Is there mold toxicity that's burdening you? Is there, genetic mutations for you that you don't realize? That was a big part of my story, is finding out that I have genes that don't necessarily work well for me in terms of inflammation. I am easy to turn on inflammation, hard to turn it off. I do need to support my detoxification pathways. I have the MTHFR, and that's not a supplement always. It's lifestyle. It's good quality diet, right? Foods that are rich in folate and B vitamins, but also managing stress, keeping my bowels moving every day, those types of things, staying adequately hydrated. So there's a lot that we can look at, beyond those two tests. But when we think about the gut, the GI map is my preferred. I think from an affordability standpoint, from a functional medicine testing perspective, there are other ones. There's Genova, there's Gut Zoomer and things like that. GI map is my favorite because it's also more cost effective than some of the others.
And what blood work, when you said you look at blood work, what tests are you doing? What are you looking at in the blood?
Yeah, so we do a lot of blood work when we first start. So we're looking complete blood count with differential. That shows us a lot of digestive stuff, insufficiencies, whether that's vitamins, stomach acid. We can see something called hypocalorgia on there, poor absorption of protein or poor protein assimilation, essentially. So we're seeing that with like creatinine, and we can see dysbiosis too, different patterns of dysbiosis, as well as specific to H. pylori. There's patterns. Candida, that is not on there, but we do see some that are more fungal. Fungal's a broad term, but then parasitic infection. So we're looking at, with differential, on a complete blood count, your monocytes, eosinophils, and basophils. So if your monocytes are 7 or above, we're thinking parasite activity. Eosinophils, 3 or above, we're thinking parasite activity. And a lot of times there's food sensitivities or reactions or histamine issues. So it could be allergies, it could be asthma, it could be food sensitivities, people say. And then basophils, 1 or above. That's kind of a trend that we look at to say, okay, this could be a parasitic infection, along with iron. Iron anemia is often seen with parasitic infection and other infections, because again, the body is not properly absorbing iron maybe that you're eating. It's not storing iron that is there. We need vitamin C and stomach acid to properly store our iron. I'm, of course, looking at a complete metabolic panel, lipid profile, right? Liver enzymes, thyroid, vitamin D, B12, usually hormones. Homocysteine, this is a big marker not a lot of people know about, but homocysteine tells us how your methylation pathways are working, which goes hand in hand, I would say, with gallbladder health too. But when we see homocysteine above a 7, we've seen in the research that that is associated with neurological disorders. So if you guys want to, you can Google like Dr. Jockers. He's got a great article with some good images as well. There's one other doctor that I'm blanking on his name right now, but homocysteine is just powerful. We have a whole episode dedicated to homocysteine, because for females especially, when we're thinking about estrogen detoxification too, if that's, again, above a 7, we're probably going to struggle with things like energy, brain fog, forgetfulness, early onset dementia. We're seeing it more, even ladies in their 30s, and it all comes back to the body's inability to detox properly. And yes, your liver is your main detox organ, but when your liver is burdened, because we're exposed to thousands of things that we weren't exposed to hundreds of years ago, we need to love on it. We need to love on the liver, and we don't do that enough with the standard American diet. We don't get enough fiber, bitter foods, herbs that really, support the liver, parsley, beets, oregano, arugula, lemon. I always say start your day with lemon water. And so much of these things are found in nature. So I'm not saying supplement all the time, right? But if somebody's coming from a standard American diet, we generally see that there's a lot of burden on our detox pathways.
Okay, so I was going to move into what do you do if somebody needs to heal their gut? But because you've said the word detox several times, yeah. I want to go and maybe that is where you start with somebody who needs to heal their gut. So kind of a two-part question. If we think about maybe some things have shown up on a test, maybe they're showing signs and symptoms of dysbiosis or poor gut health, where would you start with that person? Would it always involve a detox? What would a detox look like?
Absolutely. So when I say detox, I'm not talking about your 10-day juice cleanses or anything like that. I am really talking about opening your drainage and detox pathways. So yes, we need to make sure that you are pooping daily. The idea here is that you feel fully eliminated. You feel satisfied. You know, you're not struggling with I'm going, but it's pebbly like stools that are kind of hard to get out. Everyone who's listening to this, I hope you can understand when I say you feel satisfied. It was a good release, okay? I think that if you're not having that regularly, at least, every day, of course, I want to caveat here around ovulation and leading into your menstrual cycle, when hormones, specifically progesterone, are rising, that can slow things down. Yes, we are human. We go through these cycles. I experience it too. I'm pregnant. I've had 3 days only, thank God, in this pregnancy where I've oh man, not felt good, from a constipation perspective. And what was off? My fiber was off. My hydration was off, right? And so hydration too is a big thing for women, everybody actually. We don't properly hydrate because we don't have enough sodium, good quality minerals in our diet. And so I'm always saying, if there's 3 things that you do, it is you hydrate and you get cellularly hydrated properly. So I love lemon water in the morning with a pinch of sea salt. You can add coconut water there to balance it with some potassium if you'd like. You can do packets like LMNT or Relight. There's Just Ingredients, a lot of different electrolytes on the market, but you need to get cellularly hydrated. If you're not cellularly hydrated, how can you expect your colon to move smoothly? Right? It's dry, it's cracked. Think about cracked, dry lips. That doesn't feel good, And so next to that, so we'll say hydration, next to that is food quality. When we want to support the body's detox pathways, we want to have a lot of liver-loving foods. So this is going to look like kind of what I mentioned before about, bitters. So we can do this to stimulate digestion with lemon or lime water. You can do arugula, dandelion greens. You can do teas, right? They make a lot of teas now that are very good. But the most important thing is diversity of your diet with leafy greens, vegetables, fruits, colors, fiber. We don't want, just to always be eating apples all the time or always be eating spinach all the time, right? You really want to vary it. I will have my clients, when they are doing this initial cleanse process with me, do a 2-gallon challenge for 2 days only, where they flood the system with hydration.
2 gallons of water.
2 gallons of water. Yep,
okay.
With adequate salt, right? Mm-hmm. This kicks up aldosterone and then we flush it all out. So you do 2 days only. And some women don't get there. It's a lot of water. If you are petite, I'll say, okay, 1.5 gallons is the goal. It's substantially more than what you've been drinking just for 2 days. And then you try to maintain at least half of your body weight, if not, I would say even 2/3 of your body weight in water every day with all of those foods. Now, I will put in supports where necessary. So if I do see that someone on their blood work is showing, sluggish liver function or liver burden or whatever, I'll put in some supplements that are bitters, essentially, and they're liver-loving foods. So you could use things like beef liver capsules. There's some different products that are just bitters that you can take before you eat your foods to stimulate that. Honestly, one of my favorite products is called OptiPure. It's $36 a bottle. It's by New Ethics. It's a very well-rounded, broad spectrum liver support with all kinds of things in it, as well as some healing nutrients and different vitamins and things like that. So I will add some supplements there. I'll do juices, but I try to do it mostly through a good Mediterranean diet that is really upregulating the detox pathways. And then any other supplements that are coming in line for that are really going to be supporting our adrenals, because so many people need adrenal support, whether it's adaptogens or it is something to actually help because they are extremely fatigued. Adrenals and thyroid are something that are really, really important when you are asking the body to get rid of things that it has not been doing naturally. So again, we might come in with some thyroid, just thyroid minerals, thyroid essentials is what it's called. We might do thyroid foods specifically, right? We might do some juices like beet juice or carrot juice or things like that. So I'm running that for about 4 weeks prior to then getting into gut work. And I think when we think about detox and healing, where do we start? Most people will probably be like, I can't believe she's going to say this because it's so cliche in a lot of ways. It is managing your stress. It's slowing down to speed up, essentially. So if your body is stuck in this catabolic state, this fight or flight state, we are just constantly breaking down. We have to get in to this rest and digest state, the repair, right? So I said earlier, we do 2 things. We eat, we got to get all those nutrients, but then we got to sleep, we got to rest, right? How is the body going to ever heal and overcome some of the symptoms? All these symptoms that you're experiencing are check engine lights. So that's really, in addition to hydration and a good quality diet, it's slowing down and it's sitting with yourself and it's saying no more. And it's not going to hit classes 6 days a week. Maybe it's walking in sunshine, in nature. And, I'm a type A gal. I don't know how you are, Kim, but I am, with business and life, very busy. I've got a 5-year-old. I've got one on the way. I've got a big practice that we run, and there's always things to be doing, and the list never gets done. It just keeps growing. But at the same time, I've learned if I don't fill my cup up and I don't serve myself and my needs, I can't show up to serve others. And again, I know that sounds so cliche, but you won't heal in the environment that made you sick. And a lot of people get sick because they run on fumes. Yeah. And so those are kind of my three big things that I would say when it comes to gut healing.
Yeah, I love it. So well said. On a similar topic, you mentioned the fills, the eosinophils, basophils, the fills, indicating parasites. And so when I think of detox, I also think of parasite or parasite cleanses. So if this is showing up for somebody or if they're indicating, I remember reading that if around the full moon, especially, you have an itchy butt,
yes,
it could be very indicative of parasites. And I've never done, well, that's not true. I've had a GI map test and there wasn't any alarming fills or anything on there from a parasite. I'm pretty sure I probably do because I've lived in a third world country. I travel there quite often, but anyway, I would have this. I had one little part, too much information for some people, but right around the outside of my anus, very itchy all the time. Could have been low estrogen too. It seems to very, 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 very rarely does it happen. But for a while, in the heat of perimenopause, thyroid, chit show, everything, I definitely had an itchy butt. So what causes an itchy butt? Is it just parasites? And then should we all be doing parasite cleanses, or is there something we should be testing for first before we do something like a parasite cleanse?
Yes. So I love this question. And you did send this to me before and I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be great to talk about. So there's a couple of things that come to mind. Yes, worms. And here's what I want to say about parasites, because so many people, I know when I first learned about this, I thought 2 things. Ooh, oh my God, that gives me the EBGBs, like creepy crawlies, right? But they're around us all the time. Tap water, they've been found in, right? Soil. So if you garden or you're playing outside with your kids, you're doing practices like grounding, we can get parasitic infections. We don't have to travel to third world countries. We can get parasitic infections from bites like spider bites or mosquitoes, things like that. Kids are carriers. They are notorious for parasites. I got Giardia after I was potty training my son. He had a blowout at the park. I don't even know how it's possible for 3-year-olds. I think at that point in time, he was 3 when we were going. Anyways, so Eggs and cysts of parasites can live on surfaces for 2 weeks, underneath fingernails for like 17 days for some of
Wow.
them. So, I mean, really, they're all around us all the time. And fruits and vegetables, right? If we're not washing them, if we like sushi, I love sushi. I love a medium rare steak. So what I say to this is don't be grossed out by it, but support your body in a way that you can be a defensive host, because these suckers aren't going away, and they actually do serve roles in the body. They help clean up things, and they help, protect us from like heavy metals and different things like that. But outside of thinking of infections and worms, then we do think about hemorrhoids. If someone is straining to go to the bathroom, yes, we can see in the throes of menopause so many things, unexplainable, honestly, in terms of some of those symptoms. But yes, estrogen fluctuations. It can be internal hemorrhoids too, fissures, external. And so what are my thoughts on cleanses? After you do proper drainage and detoxification work, then yes, of course, we go through parasite cleanses with our clients when it's warranted. Parasites harbor all other toxins. Okay. And so for those of you listening, I want you to think about a balance scale, or maybe you're watching on video. So we have our Th1 and our Th2. These are two pathways in the immune system. Th2 is really what fights and defends against parasitic infections. But histamine is also found in this pathway. So if you notice that you have seasonal allergies in general, you have food reactions or sensitivities or histamine intolerance, mast cell activation, a lot of that can be indications that there's parasitic presence. And when Th2 is activated, Th1 is, down-regulated. Well, Th1 is how we fight and defend from other bacteria, viruses, and such. So you might find that you get sick a lot, or you don't get sick at all, and that these parasites are just invading the body and different organ systems too, by the way. They invade more than just the GI tract. So they'll get into the liver and the gallbladder. We see this a lot with flukes coming from the liver. And so it creates estrogen issues. It can create all kinds of things. I don't want to gross you guys out, but I've got podcasts on parasites if you want to talk about that. Yes, I think that parasite cleansing is important, and it is honestly life-changing for some ladies. I've had women who've come to me after working with other practitioners. They thought they had SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. It was part of the story, but they never did parasite cleansing. She had asthma, anxiety, hives when she was cold. So if she'd go to like Costco and just be in the really cold section, we call it like cryotherapy Costco, because some of the sections there, she'd get hives. It was worms. It was large parasites. And so she, is able to pass all of that and many of those things, including her food reactions. She was down to like the specific carbohydrate diet, such limited foods. So when we can clear out those infections, not only can we support the immune system rebalancing, but now we can support not having to take Zyrtec or Allegra every day, not having to worry if I'm going to have a reaction to these foods, because dairy intolerance is a very common food sensitivity or intolerance when you have some parasitic infection. So those would be some of the things I would think about. And you are 100% correct around the full moon. We do generally see that people, and again, this is something I thought was total like woo-woo quack stuff until I really read about it and understood it. And now I've seen it in clinical practice so much that when the full moon is coming around, so the tides change, and this messes with our melatonin and our serotonin. Okay, and serotonin mobilizes parasites, so we see more parasitic activity. That's why sometimes people will feel, hey, I'm waking up a lot more in the middle of the night, especially 3 a.m. They're very active at 3 a.m. I have itchy butt. I have anxiety. I'm insatiable. I'm eating enough food, but I just don't feel satisfied. Agitation or irritability. We can see skin issues flare. We can see digestive issues flare. So sometimes with constipation, that can be more indicating larger parasites, so adult-sized parasites that have been around for a while. Or if it's more diarrhea, those can be some of the smaller parasites, smaller worms, protozoa, and flukes. So when you're going to do a parasite cleanse, I think it's important to understand that the life cycle of parasite matters. A lot of people will do 7-day cleanses, full moon challenges, or 10-day cleanses and whatnot. Those are great for maintenance, in my personal opinion. Awesome for maintenance. They're marketed as this is going to be the fix all, right? 45 to 60 days is a minimum, and longer if the person's passing parasites. And then things change. Like the one client that I just gave the example of, when she started passing large worms, we changed her protocol. We adjusted the types of herbs that we were using because we don't want to leave anything behind, right? We don't want to partially cleanse. So I love parasite cleansing when it is done right. Open your drainage and detox pathways first. Get in there and, do at least 45 to 60 days. The herbs for parasite cleansing, there's a lot of them that are also antimicrobial, antifungal, right? So if you are dealing with other things, it's kind of nice because we can do 2 jobs at once. We're not going to have to do like parasite cleansing, then H. pylori, then candida. Sometimes we do have to follow up the parasite cleanse to get a little bit more specific to some types of bacteria. But I just can't support ethically and morally, because as a practitioner, I could sell programs that would do this, and I don't. If I design a parasite cleanse program, which I've been asked to several times, it's going to be a full 90 days. It's going to be 30 days of drainage and detox, and it will be 60 days of a parasite cleanse, and then instructions and tools and things for people to do after to repair. So you cleanse and you eradicate things, but you've also got to think about becoming that defensive host. You've got to repair the microbiome, restore your stomach acid levels or support them, put in some nutrients that support having, a strong mucosal barrier. That's your 1 layer thick lining from your nose to your tail. Think about it as your skin on the inside. You don't want it to be dry and cracked, right? Because then it's leaky. Things are getting into the bloodstream. So I think that's another big miss, is that I had somebody ask me yesterday on Instagram, she's breaking out more with acne after doing parasite cleansing for, she said 6 months, maybe it was 6 months ago. It's hard with those question boxes, right, to fully know the story. But I had said so many questions back to her because I thought, we see a lot of skin issues clear up. I have seen some of the worst cystic acne on cheeks and chin clear up when we've addressed parasites. But also within that, we're restoring the microbiome, right? We're rebalancing and we're repairing and rebuilding. So just don't forget about those pieces. And I know it sounds complex and it sounds like a lot, but I don't want to see more people doing these things because it can be dangerous if you're putting in all these eradication or detox, herbs and such, if you're not opened up with the drainage. Your kidney, your liver, your gallbladder, your colon isn't all supported and you're properly hydrated to flush this stuff out. It's got to go somewhere. So where's it going to go? It's going to build up in the body, and then your symptoms are going to get worse.
Yeah. Yeah. Things like, if I think about opening up a pathway, so people who are constipated, there are some practitioners who will say we need to get things moving first while we're also healing the gut. So a lot of people I hear daily, I use Miralax, I use Restoralax. And so I think there's more optimal ways. Would you agree? And what would those ways be to get things moving from that elimination pathway? And then you talked about the mucosal barrier. We've talked about diversity of the gut and some of the herbs and stomach acid promoting, that type of thing. But specific to that mucosal lining, how can we support that?
So let's start first with the question about Miralax, Restoralax. So I am very open and very against these things. I've talked a lot about them on my Instagram because they're toxic to the body. If you look up Miralax lawsuits, you're going to find all kinds of things. It is PEG 3350, polyethylene glycol 3350. Okay, and there's been all kinds of, the FDA has done research, other independent organizations have done research around this in terms of testing, right, Miralax? So PEG 3350, it's found in antifreeze and brake fluid. All right, it's toxic to the body. It's neurotoxic as well. So what they were seeing with children especially is that they were having a lot of behavioral psychoneurological reactions and side effects from this. It's so toxic to the body that it works so well. I took it when I was chronically constipated because I had a colonoscopy in college. They didn't find anything. They said Miralax, fiber, and water, right? It's a classic trio. Well, you don't want to put a lot more fiber in somebody who's constipated because it can make the constipation worse. They become more uncomfortable. And when I think, the hydration piece is good, but let's be specific. Electrolytes. Am I cellularly hydrated? There's a difference here. If you are puffy and you feel that extra, kind of layer, let's say like even like edema, right? Or swelling, your lymphatic system needs some love and some work, and you need more sodium and potassium to pull water into the cells. That's why I love like things like Element, and then I'll add some coconut water, some potassium separately. But yes, I 100% agree that there are many natural ways that we can support the body, and I wish that I could understand why they don't have that discussion. Magnesium. Magnesium bisglycinate. This is one of I have a favorite product I'm going to share with you guys, but I do want to cover this because when I was first practicing, I would always recommend Calm, which is magnesium citrate. That is an osmotic laxative. It pulls water to the bowels. It's effective. It works, but it can also be uncomfortable for some people. Being totally transparent, I don't like the taste of it. I didn't like how it felt in my stomach. It kind of fizzes, and I love club soda, sparkling water, but this was just different. It just didn't sit right with me. So I went to magnesium bisglycinate, or glycinate. And the cool part about this is that it actually works on the neurosignaling. So we know that one of the root causes of constipation is magnesium deficiency. And when we think about glycinate, it's one of the most absorbable forms. It will saturate your cells before it goes to the colon. So sometimes you do need higher doses. So that's the cool piece about it, is like, even if you did go to higher doses, you weren't going to have that uncomfortable GI like distress the way you would with citrate. So I also understand, though, not a lot of people want to take as much as it might take for them. So I like a product. It's actually called ProSorb Plus. It's newer. And it's designed by one of my mentors, transparently. I always tell him I wish that I would have come up with this, because it tastes like, to me, like a lemon bar. It's like lemon ice is their flavor, but it's got vitamin C, magnesium bisglycinate, and magnesium citrate. So it's effective for working for constipation, but it also supports your adrenals, your sleep, stress handling, all kinds of things. So I love magnesium. I don't know why conventional medicine, doesn't talk about this first. I can't wrap my head around it. Can't tell you. Follow the money. That's all I can say with my tinfoil hat on, I guess. But, then there's other things. So, for that person who says, God, I've just got to get going. Like, this isn't working. I had one lady, she drank a whole bottle of the liquid magnesium citrate from Walgreens, and it still didn't do anything for her, right? Then you need to do some different blends and some herbs. I have a free guide if they would like to download it. It's called The Constipation Cure. I do start with food first. That's always my approach. 2 kiwis a day has been shown in research to work as an osmotic laxative. But again, if you're already backed up, there's fiber there. I don't want to make you uncomfortable. Same thing like chia seeds, chia and flax, that can work well. MCT oil. MCT oil is derived from coconut oil. It's a liquid, and it doesn't require bile to be broken down. So bile, as I mentioned, comes from our liver. It's stored in the gallbladder. So MCT can kind of act as like a lubricant because it doesn't need bile. It's not going to require bile to be broken down. So those are nice things that you can do. Warm lemon water in the morning. And then if you really need to get moving, there's a product called Colon Cleanse. I have it linked in my guide, and that's more of a laxative. There's also another one if some people are allergic to black walnut. It's called Constipend, Constipend. You can look on Amazon for that. It's not in our practitioner shop, unfortunately, but Constipend would be another one. And, I think giving yourself time in the morning, as I talked about before, stress. Okay, I would love to hear your thoughts on this, how you coach people through some of this too, because pooping hygiene is a serious thing. Mm-hmm. And you need to get calm. Colon cleansing time is between 5 and 7 a.m. If you wake up and your just hair's on fire, you're overslept, you got to get your kids out of the house, nobody has lunches packed, it's just like chaos. There is no way, unless you get like the opposite effect, which is, oh my God, I have to go to the bathroom right now. There's no way that your body is prioritizing you having a nice formed stool that's easy to pass, and it's, not straining or whatever. So give yourself some time in the morning. That's why I think the morning ritual of a tea, or I love lemon, adrenal cocktails, lemon water or lime water with a pinch of sea salt, put some coconut water in there, and get in the proper position on the toilet. And this is where I'll let you provide some of your expertise, because from the pelvic floor perspective, I send a lot of clients to pelvic floor therapists. I say, you've got to go and you've got to work on some of the neurological signaling, the muscles, the tightness or whatnot. So I'd love to hear your thoughts there, because I think that routine, you got to have a poo routine.
You do. 1,000,000,000% I agree with everything that you've said. And I will purposely, I won't wake up like, at 2 a.m, but I will wake up earlier than I need to. If I have to get out the door earlier than I normally would, because I need that time. And it's like my day, my day's not as good of a day as it could be if I haven't had my routine with my poop, got everything eliminated and used my squatty potty, all the things. And so things like I do promote the water with lemon as well. Abdominal massage for some people can be really helpful, like the I Love You massage. But it's also what you have done the day before is what's setting you up for success with that morning routine as well. How you have hydrated the day before, how you have nourished your body, how you have moved your body, how you have slept. And then, as you say, reaching now the morning. And if you are waking up and going to your HIIT class or spin class at 6 a.m. or even if it's a yoga class at 6 a.m., you're still, unless you've woken up at 4 and you've had enough adequate sleep, you doesn't matter how zen that activity would be, you still are rushing out the door to get there. So fully in support of everything of what you've said. And of course, doing pelvic floor muscle training, which includes relaxation. There's a huge emphasis on the relaxation and releasing tension, because if we're not pooping, we're probably going to be tense. That can be a reason why we're not pooping. But if we're also maybe leaking urine or afraid of a prolapse, we're going to be tense. If we are rushing around, we're going to be tense. And so we got to let the shit go, literally and figuratively. Yep. I want to wrap up. We're way over time. I'm sorry to have kept you for so long. But you just listed a few, you call them your magic gut drinks, I think is what you said. But you had a few, and I'm assuming lemon water is going to be one of them. What are your gut health drinks or your magic drinks that you talk about?
Yeah, so there's a few. I start my day every morning with lemon water or lime. I showed lime yesterday just for some people to see, because I have a lot of, you want a bitter in there. You want a citrus, right? Coconut water. I like half and half water and coconut water. And then I put a pinch of sea salt and some camu in there. And so there's a lot of benefits here. I mean, you're stimulating digestion. You are supporting the liver. Lemon's very good for the liver and bile flow. You're mineralizing the body because you're adding in potassium, magnesium, vitamin C, sodium, of course, to help hydrate the cells. And you're not putting coffee first thing in the morning on an empty stomach, which is very acidic. It's also very, dehydrating. I was notorious for this. My first job was a barista. I love coffee through and through, but now my rule is, I have it with or after food. I'm not relying on it first thing in the morning, because I was finding that I would have a 3 p.m. crash. It didn't hurt my gut. Like I didn't have, some people would get like heartburn or reflux if they're drinking black coffee, empty stomach. That wasn't a thing ever for me. It was, I was relying on that stimulant, and I was dehydrating an already dehydrated body because I was just waking up and doing it. And so that's my morning ritual. I think there's other things that are amazing. Bone broth every day. A cup of bone broth is very healing, soothing. L-glutamine, a lot of amino acids, collagen, gelatin, taurine, all of those things can be very powerful. The caveat here is if somebody has histamine reaction. So it can interact with those who have histamine intolerance or allergies. So you got to just find what works for you there. I think, you've seen, and I have this on my Instagram as well, some of the apple cider vinegar recipes with meals to stimulate and support digestive juices and stomach acid. I personally am very transparent to say apple cider vinegar is not something that I do regularly because I don't like it. So I support with betaine HCl directly. It's a supplement. But that can be helpful. You can use things like ginger turmeric. Those type of shots are also, very helpful. But the biggest thing that I tell people is, what are you going to be consistent with? And there is really no, I mean, these have a lot of healing properties and healing powers to them, but they're not a magic bullet that then gives you the right to go and eat, a standard American diet full of seed oils and processed foods and things like that. So, just remember that it's got to be what feels right for you, what you can get behind, you can feel good about doing. I feel good about my adrenal cocktails in the morning. I look forward to it. I just know that it works well for me. The apple cider vinegar thing, I know how awesome it is. Trust me. I've seen the research. I know all the things about it. It's not
but you
something
don't like
it. So I'm not going to do it. I think most humans, I always try to be mindful if someone's in, my program, which by the way, a couple of my clients actually are in your program, I hear, which is cool.
Oh, cool.
If they're not going to be consistent with it long term, then we're kind of, in the short term, maybe they're benefiting from it, but it's really about how do they leave my program and sustain this.
Stay consistent. Yep.
Yeah. If it's not sustainable, I'm not going to force them to do those things. It's find other ways, do other things you will sustain.
One last thing, sorry, that you just brought up. Stomach acid, you take the betaine HCl. There's the low stomach acid test with the baking soda you can do in the morning. How valid is that for somebody if you Google low stomach acid test and you do baking soda and you don't burp and so you say, oh, I have low stomach acid. Is that reliable enough?
So I think it can be helpful for some individuals who don't want to do the test that I do, which I'll walk you through, but I don't know that there's any one particular thing other than the very, very expensive test that they do in conventional medicine in very severe cases. So I've seen it work well for people who are like, oh, wow, I never burped or I burped at 11 minutes. Okay, I'll support my stomach acid, right? And do this, what I call HCl tolerance test. 9 out of 10 times someone with heartburn, reflux, GERD, it's low stomach acid. It's not too much stomach acid. And what depletes stomach acid? Stress, aging, crappy diets, infections, for sure. But all of that leads to opening the door for infections to come in. So I actually use, it's called a product by Biotics Research, Hydrozyme. It's a low dose betaine HCl. And you can Google this and many functional doctors have written about it. I have it in my holistic heartburn healing course, but you basically take 1 capsule with each meal, day 1. Then you're doing that depending upon the person, how sensitive they are. They can do it for a day or 2, or they can go up each day. When you get to 5 per meal, that is equivalent to one of the higher dose capsules that many people would find over the counter if they were buying something like betaine plus HP or Enzymatica. You'll see a lot of them out there. You want to look at the milligrams. This Hydrozyme is 150 milligrams. And I like to start there because not everybody needs the 700 milligrams. And so you can go up, and then if you do find that you have a higher need, of course, change the supplement, that's a higher dose, and then the upper limit for each meal is 4,200 milligrams. Some functional doctors and practitioners have looked and said 6,000 milligrams. I think that's a lot. Yeah. I think we've got to also focus on, again, other things that are going to support the body's natural production of stomach acid. Everything we've talked about today, hydration, lemon water, these bitter greens and all of that stuff, chewing your food, eating hygiene, sitting down, all of that is so important. So I like the HCl tolerance test because once you find your threshold, maybe where you feel that, okay, that was a little uncomfortable. I had some heartburn or reflux pop through, then back down and stay there. So you might get to, say, 2,100 milligrams per meal, 3 of the larger capsules, and it was too much. Okay, drop back to 2 per meal and sit there for a little while. When you're heavily stressed or you're going through times like pregnancy, our need is higher because we're being depleted. Stress depletes nutrients, essential nutrients, and obviously pregnancy is the most nutrient depleting time of life for a female. So I really wish conventional medicine would talk about this too. I'm doing a bump diary series talking about it because I've seen too many people do like the whole Tums and, all of the things to suppress. They'll go on a PPI even when they're pregnant and suppress a stomach acid. And it's like, no, because then you're not getting all the nutrients. You're not digesting and absorbing those nutrients. So I am a huge advocate of betaine HCl. If I had to take one supplement for the rest of my life and it's all I could pick, it would be betaine, because I know how protective it is against pathogens, making me a defensive host, and how important it is to assimilate my nutrients and absorb them.
Very interesting. Okay, that's such a great way to leave us off. Thank you. I kept you here a lot longer than I really should have, but I'm so appreciative of your time and all of the knowledge, the incredible knowledge that you shared. I will also put links to those resources in the show notes so people can come and find them. Thank you for sharing those. And I guess, where can people come and find you? We'll have the links, but if you can share where they can learn more and potentially work with you as well.
Absolutely. So my main platform is Instagram. I'm an Instagram girl. So at the Poop Queen, as we talked about. Our website is fitmomlife.com. That's the company that I own, functional practice that works with women. And our podcast is the Health Revival Show. So we have a ton of episodes on there. I think 735 as of yesterday.
Wow.
Wild. Yes. We're a top 1% podcast, which is so cool, but we
Wow,
have
great.
recently increased our output of podcast. So we'll have to have you on our show. We only work with women, so many women could hear and learn from your expertise and experience as well. So, but yeah, Instagram, I am in my own DMs. So if you've got a question, I'm always happy to chat with you. Just shoot me a message. And if it doesn't come through or something, try again, because I think you probably understand, Kim, we've got like 4 inboxes there.
I know, multiple, they're all over the place. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Amazing. Thank you so much. And yeah, I'd love to join you. Congratulations. That's a huge accomplishment with your podcast. Amazing. So until next time, thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you on the next episode.